Last Tuesday was not the destination, it was the start line for the revival of this country. The cabinet picks this week, you know what, Donald Trump wasn't afraid in putting Tom Homan and Kristi Noem in charge of the mass deportations of millions of illegals for this country. But I also want to thank him for making sure that Elon Musk and I are in a position to start the mass deportations of millions of unelected federal bureaucrats out of the D.C. bureaucracy. That, too, is how we're going to save this country. And I don't know if you've got to know Elon yet, but he doesn't bring a chisel, he brings a chainsaw, and we're going to be taking it to that bureaucracy. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I do want to say this, is that we've been taught to believe over the last 4 years that we have become a nation in decline, that we're at the end of the ancient Roman Empire. All we have is to fight over the scraps of some shrinking pie. I don't think we have to stay that nation in decline. I think with what happened last week, we're back to being a nation in our ascent, a nation whose best days are actually still ahead of us. I couldn't tell you last year that it was morning in America. It's not. It's not yet, but on January 20th, it is going to be morning in America, the start of a new dawn, the start of a country where our kids are going to grow up and we're going to tell them and mean it that you get ahead in the United States again with your own hard work and commitment and dedication, that you're free to speak your mind at every step of the way, that the best person gets the job regardless of their skin color. I think most of us agree on it. The next 4 years is just the beginning. It's not the end of the chapter, it's the beginning. And I think the work that's going on here at AFBI sets the course not just for the next 4 years, but for the next 250. And so what I will say is when we send Donald J. Trump back to the White House on January 20th, that is just the beginning of our best days as a nation, still yet ahead of us. Thank you all for supporting the mission here. Thank you all for your love of this country. Do not stop fighting until we get this job done. And 4 years from now, we're going to say not make America great again, but keep making America greater.
All right, so do not stop fighting until the job is done. And that's a message to all of us. You got to keep fighting. These people, with what Trump has planned with Elon and Vivek, it is not going to be easy. They are going to fight every step of the way. I saw this. Okay, so I'm going to go back and play some more stuff from Vivek, but I saw this. This was posted a little over an hour ago. Again, if you guys don't know who Dan Scavino is, he is Donald Trump's guy in terms of media. He's also been announced as part of the administrative team this time. I forget his position, something to do with staff. But he just posted these 3 words. And this was at 6:30 p.m., 6:28. Accountability is coming. You see, the whole thing about Doge began to roll out earlier this evening. And what they're saying about Doge and a couple other things that Trump has said are just absolutely amazing. So let me play some more of this by Vivek so you can get the feeling, or you can get the setting as to what exactly he is looking to do with Elon.
I want to get your take on how this begins.
Sure.
What are you looking to cut right from the beginning?
So first is we want to go right in through executive action to do the failures of the executive branch that need to be addressed. Because the dirty little secret right now, Maria, is the people we elect to run the government, they're not the ones who actually run the government. It's the unelected bureaucrats in the administrative state. That was created through executive action. It's going to be fixed through executive action. Think about the Supreme Court's environment over the last several years. They've held that many of those regulations are unconstitutional at a large scale. Rescind those regulations, pull those regs back, and then that gives us the industrial logic to then downsize the size of that administrative state. And the beauty of all of this is that can be achieved just through executive action without Congress. Score some early wins, and then you look at those bigger portions of the federal budget that need to be addressed one by one. So I think that's one way to think about this is how can the President of the United States, who's been elected with a historic mandate, actually do the thing that the voters have voted for. They haven't voted for incremental change here this time, Maria. We have voted for sweeping change, and the voters actually deserve to get it, and we're focused.
Now one thing that's on my mind as I've listened to Vivek speak, and I firmly believe that he's absolutely correct. There is an unelected dark force that is running our government. part of cutting the funding and basically trimming the fat, a lot of fat out of this government, is to find out, to reveal who are these people. Trot them out there. Take them out of the shadows and put them on display. Let us know who these people behind the scenes who have been shielded by just about every administration. We don't even know who they are. Who are these people that are pushing the buttons and telling us what we can or can't do? We know Dementia Joe hasn't been doing it. We know Kamala Harris hasn't been doing it, but we don't know who exactly has been doing it. I think the American people need to know that first and foremost. Bring those people out, bring them out in a hearing, do whatever you need to do, and say, here are the people who have been calling the shots behind the scenes. I think in terms of if accountability is coming, like Dan Scavino said, maybe perhaps that's the first bit of accountability, that being exposure. Let us know who these people are. Let us know how long they've been entrenched. How long have they been there? What do they do? How much do they make? All of this should be public record. There should be no secret. It all should be transparent. How much does this person make? Have they filed their taxes? Have they done this? Have they done that? How long have they been here? How long have these snakes been in the grass? We should know that.
How to do that as early and as quickly as possible.
So President-elect Trump just said on that soundbite that you're going to make recommendations. So you're going to make recommendations in terms of where to cut after all that you've just said. Then what?
Look, we're not going to be cutting ribbons. We're going to be cutting costs. And so those recommendations are going to be on a real-time basis. But I do want to take a big step back and for people to understand the scope of this problem. Over $500 billion that's spent every year right now was not even authorized by Congress in the first place. The Pentagon has just failed its 7th consecutive audit, nearly $1 trillion of budget. They can't even tell you where it goes. So I think part of this is exposing for the public the extent of that rot and waste, but then to take steps first through executive action and then laying the groundwork for broader change through legislation as well to rein in that deficit, to rein in that budget. And more crucially, Maria, I know we're talking about this in terms of efficiency, but there's something deeper going on here. This is about restoring self-governance and accountability in America as well.
Are you expecting to close down entire agencies?
Now, this is a huge question that's freaking people out. I've seen stuff on X all day today with people being completely freaked out, especially after he announced what I'm going to show you.
President Trump has talked about the Department of Education, for example. Are you going to be closing down departments?
We expect mass reductions. We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions.
And that would be a yes then.
In force in areas of the federal government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the federal government. So yes, we expect all of the above. And I think people will be surprised by, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
And I didn't hear you here say...
So you shouldn't be surprised because they're moving fast now. What I love that Trump is doing, he is not letting the Democrats rest. They are having to fight so many battles simultaneously, they can't possibly do it. So I'm going to take you through something, which is Vivek and Elon released somewhat of a document here that tells you what they're going to do. So here is basically the mission statement of Doge. It says Elon and Vivek have released their plan to dismantle the bureaucratic state, slash the federal workforce, and end the waste. And this was posted at 5:02 p.m. So things are happening very fluently. The Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, plans to enact strict in-person office attendance to encourage resignations. So everyone's been screaming, hey, if you make people come back to the office, there are a whole bunch of people are going to quit. Exactly. That's to encourage resignations. I.e., I don't want people, number one, who aren't needed, and two, who don't want to be here. Those two things right there are the top of my list for an employee. I don't want you if you don't want to be here. I'm not going to beg you to work for me. And two, if you are working here, I need to know I need you here. And so he's putting that up straight up. You're going to use swift executive action and rely on Supreme Court rulings. So they're going to have the precedent and have the power of the Supreme Court and previous Supreme Court rulings to do what they need to do. That should be very scary for the Democrats. Slash regulations and other burdensome policies within the administrative state. Speak for itself. Severely, I love the word, severely reduce the federal workforce. Ouch. Target misuse spending, money being spent on stuff it's not supposed to be spent on. Pretty easy. We've seen it over and over already. Use Trump's authority to edit civil service rules, lessen protections for workers from being fired. Now, that's a big one. You know, all these administrative people, they hide under this burdensome, regulations that say, I can't be fired. No, I can't fire. I'm here. You're stuck with me. He's going to edit that and lessen the protections for workers being fired. Obviously, there will be lawsuits out the wazoo. They understand that. They know that going forward. And finally, restore the founder's vision. So what exactly does that mean? What do you mean by restore the founder's vision? Our nation was founded, and this is a quote, our nation was founded on the basic idea that the people we elect run the government. That isn't how America functions today. Most legal edicts aren't laws enacted by Congress, but rules and regulations promulgated by unelected bureaucrats. Tens of thousands of them each year. This is anti-democratic and antithetical to the founder's vision. There's no better birthday gift to our nation on its 250th anniversary than to deliver a federal government that would make our founders proud. Do you know why all these unelected bureaucrats actually run the government? I'm going to tell you right now. If you ever watch these congressional hearings, and you see the congressional hearings, and you see the people behind the senators and the people in the House, and they're handing them notes, and they're scribbling things and saying, here you go. It's because we have a huge number of mental morons in our government. These are people who can campaign well, who can be out there, pressing palms and kissing babies, who have no clue what they're doing. None. And they don't need them, as you saw with Kamala Harris and to a certain extent with Dementia Joe. They don't need you to know. They just need you to be out there looking like you came from Chuck E. Cheese. Just keep waving and tell the people everything's fine. Meanwhile, we're back here writing all the laws, the thousands and thousands and thousands of regulations. And when you need to go to a hearing, we're going to put together a paper, this big book that you can just go through and read. Because we know you don't know what you're talking about. Next time there's a congressional hearing, listen to the people talk. Listen to the ones who actually can articulate a thought as to what they're doing. And then look at the other ones who do this the entire hearing. Oh, okay, so when was it you did this when you did that? Okay, all right, so what you're saying is, and they just read. These are all actors. They've been given scripts. If you watch the hearings, you'll see these people have no idea. They're told what questions to ask, in what order, because the unelected bureaucrats who are behind them are the ones pulling the strings, and nobody ever knows who they are. I challenge you. I challenge you even go look up some older hearings and watch who stands behind these people. Who the hell is that handing so-and-so a note? We didn't elect that person. That person back there doesn't have anything to do with our government. Why are they handing you a note telling you what to say and when to say it? You'd be amazed if you paid attention to who's sitting behind the senators, who's sitting behind the congressmen. Those are the people that are basically facilitating the other people who are actually running the government. You see, the people who are running it, they're not coming into view in front of a camera. They're sending their underlings. But the underlings have even know more than the congressional people in the Senate, most of the people in the Senate. You look at Mitch McConnell. He can't even stand. I think there should be some sort of regulation that put in place that if you can't articulate what you signed, then we can't accept your signature. Because that tells me right away you did not write what this thing says. We see tweets from people. We see all these kind of things where so-and-so said this, and here's a statement from, dude, you can't spell half the words in that statement. You should be able to, in the day and age of social media, you should be able to stand in front of a camera and say, I did this regulation and I'm for it because X, Y, and Z, and I put, like they always say, I support this message. Say it. Because they can't. Some of these people are so old they can't even probably write. Their hands are probably all arthritic, looking like this. Got them elephant man crap going on. You saw Mitch McConnell come out there and go, he has no idea. None. And so you're trying to tell me that Mitch McConnell is the one pulling the strings and trying to go after Matt Gaetz? Ain't buying it. Ain't buying it whatsoever. All you got to do is take the guy's hand and write, sign a piece of paper for him. Same thing with Dementia Joe. You really think Dementia Joe said, hey, listen, this would be a good idea. Why don't we tell Ukraine to go ahead and launch some rockets? Yeah. No, he didn't come up with that. Somebody tapped him on the shoulder and said, here, sign this real quick and shut up. Go eat your oatmeal. That's the problem. The accountability, in my mind, is first and foremost. Let us open the curtain. Who is Oz? Let me see who's actually back there. Let's continue with Vivek here.
Spending or national debt once.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem. And I worked in the Trump White House. I tried to get Trump to talk more about this. But if we don't get control of spending, we're not going to get control of anything else. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I was somewhat intentional about making a pitch on the national debt or spending not the centerpiece of my pitch, though it leads to the same place. The reason is I think that people don't clerically, and the accounting nature of it, I don't think that compels people to move. After all, we would have complained about the national debt when it was 26 trillion, now it's 34. 35 and counting, right? There's a national debt clock if you want to, but who's counting, right? That's kind of part of the point. Versus getting to the root cause of what gives us that national debt, which is the nanny state as we know it. When I say nanny state, I mean there's three parts to the nanny state, all right? And I don't normally give a speech like this, but you guys are at the bleeding edge, you're at the vanguard, you're policymakers, you're thinkers, so let's just get to the stuff that my usual advisor would tell me is too boring for campaign stuff, okay? So there's three parts to the nanny state. Okay, there's the entitlement state, there's the regulatory state, and there's the foreign policy nanny state as well. My vision is shut them all down. Shut them all down, you solve your national debt problem right there. Let's go piece by piece. Entitlement state, welfare, Medicaid, any type of government assistance, attach a work requirement to it.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if this stuff comes into fruition? In addition to all the other stuff, when they have these bills that are, 2,500 pages that these guys didn't even read, that's because they didn't write them either. Imagine making the people who are elected, nothing gets passed unless you author it. Not the guy over there, not the lawyer from the lobbyist firm, not your special interest who handed you a bill and said just sign your name to it. Show us you know what you're talking about. You got elected to do this. Write it.
Make work requirements pervasive to any type of government aid. That's how you shut down the entitlement state. The regulatory state, we got 4 million federal bureaucrats. Everybody, including me, is talking about the mass deportation of millions of illegals from this country, which I favor. But the real mass deportation we need is the mass deportation of millions of unelected federal bureaucrats out of Washington, D.C. You shut down the regulatory state that way. And in a post-Chevron, post-West Virginia versus EPA world, 75% or more of federal regulations are unconstitutional under existing law. Rescind those with a single order that says the Supreme Court has told us these regulations are invalid. Then you move to the foreign policy nanny state.
I want to stop him there for a second. He's absolutely right. There are so many rules and regulations in place that the Supreme Court has already adjudicated and said they're unconstitutional. But in order for them to be challenged and thrown out, it requires, the person on the other side, whether it be a Democrat or a Republican, to say, hey, we can't do this because, it's already been determined to be unconstitutional. So that tells you right off the bat that these people are joined at the hip. Hey, we're going to get you a couple million, just nod and go along with this. Like I'm saying, be prepared. Be prepared for when they open the veil, when they pull open the Oz curtain. There's going to be some people standing back there naked. You're going to go, oh no, you two, people that you thought you could trust, Tim Scott. You're going to find a lot of people who have been taking all kinds of millions just to nod their head and look the other way. Don't look over here. Just, we got you. We're going to make sure that the wheels are greased. Just keep going. Don't look over here.
Yeah, my view is zero-based budgeting for every federal expenditure. Foreign aid should not be an exception to that question either. You've automatically solved our national debt crisis that way. And so I want to go to the root causes and one by one dismantle the areas where we're spending that money where we shouldn't. I find that, and I believe that even going forward, that's going to be a more effective problem to tackling the national debt than to talk about the esoteric national debt, where otherwise when push comes to shove, everyone's got their favorite sacred cow that they don't want to slay. And by the way, I say that as a proud practicing Hindu myself, okay?
But he nailed it. Everyone has their own sacred cow. Hey, listen, I got this bridge in Iowa. I'm going to need, maybe 15, 20 million to make sure that this bridge is fixed over the next 3 or 4 years. My office will handle that, administer it to make sure it gets done. All right, here, you got 20 million. Thank you. Meanwhile, that bridge never gets built, i.e. Gavin Newsom. The train to nowhere. Nobody questions that, by the way. Hey, you built a train that isn't finished yet, and you spent gazillion dollars. I don't know if you guys remember back in, 90s, when Boston and Massachusetts had this thing called the Big Dig, and they were trying to make a tunnel, and it took forever, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars went up there, and it just didn't happen for the longest time ever. It became a joke. The Big Dig was a joke up in New England. I lived up there. I remember that. And so this guy and Elon better have some of the best protection in the world, because you're digging into the pockets of a lot of people, a lot of companies, people that would make you disappear because of that kind of money. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of your dollars that they felt no problem just taking.
I mean, today the people we elect to run the government, they're not even the ones who actually run the government. It's unelected bureaucrats, which was actually the view of pre-revolutionary England, that the people could not be trusted to self-govern. What we're actually doing here is not just stimulating our economy. Take the regulatory state out, that's the best wet blanket. We take off our economy to actually deliver economic growth again. It's not just that we've solved our national debt crisis, it's that we've solved our civic crisis. As part of that.
All right, so right here, he's about to tell you, this was tonight. Basically, I just set the table to get to this point. This was a video he set out tonight. And it's basically flipping the switch for Doge, and he's letting you know we're already on the job.
Process, I'm now all in. I'm focused on making sure that we actually accomplish the goal rather than just talking about it. So to that end, for the next little bit, I'm going to put a pause on the Weekly Truth podcasts. I've enjoyed doing it this year. It's been incredibly fun and entertaining. I've learned from a lot of the guests, and I've enjoyed communicating with all of you. We're going to put that on pause for a little bit. And as you may have heard, Elon and I are going to start a separate track of Dogecasts that explain exactly what we're doing to the public to provide transparency in what is a once-in-a-generation project. We want to bring the public along with us, to lift the curtain, to take us behind the scenes of what actually that waste, fraud, and abuse in government looks like. However bad you think it is, it's probably worse. But we don't want to do this to just expose the problem. We want to do it to solve the problem. So stay tuned. We're going to have more information about when those Dogecasts are going to begin. We are neck deep right now in transitioning to the new dawn on January 20th. But in the meantime, I thank all of you for your journey this year, for joining us. I've loved doing the truth, and we're just going to put it on pause for a little bit to hopefully embark on this new chapter of saving our republic. Stay tuned for further details.
It's 2024, about to be 2025. We're about to end this year. And this is the first time, unless you guys can tell me otherwise, this is the first time that I've seen anybody in our government ever say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to hold weekly, monthly, however long. We're going to have a podcast called Dogecast. And in these Dogecasts, we're going to tell you everything we find. We're going to tell you where the money was, who lost it, who spent it, who authorized it, who's got it. We're going to tell you everything. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.